Three, two, one. Welcome back to the Frequency of Fatherhood Summit. Today we have Rod Richard. Rod Richard is a work-life harmony coach who specializes in helping men navigate life's significant transitions. Rod, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, brother. I can't complain.
Good, good, good. So when we were putting this summit together, one thing that stood out when I was thinking about who I wanted to have on, especially talking about our three themes of character, community, and connection, you were one of the first ones that came to mind. And something that you've been putting out heavily is this work-life harmony, right? And before we get into that, tell me a little bit about your why. Like, what got you into this work, and why are you doing it?
Yeah, you know what? I imagine my why is much like everybody else who's listening, and probably yours as well. My kids, my family is my why. I like to tell people that, when I found out I was going to be a father, the first time my wife told me you're going to be a dad is when I was introduced to my purpose. Prior to that, I had been chasing a career and trying to do all the things and make all the money and buy houses and cars, all the things they tell you to do. But then when I found out I was going to be a father, I was immediately a father, and that took precedence over all titles. So everything I do now, I think everything I do going forward will always be father centered. So that is my why.
Yeah, I think it's important, like you just said something is that you became a father, right? And I firmly believe that a lot of fathers, they want to be great fathers, they want to be present fathers. They just don't know how, right? We're transitioning
Mhm.
from a time where men were, they're financial providers and that was their lane. And now we're expected to be there emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, right? And so it comes down to teaching. It comes down to being around men that can do that. And so going to this work-life balance, like what is the significance of building strong connections with your loved ones?
Well, I think if you don't have those strong connections, right? And again, you mentioned it. One of our primary roles as a man and as a father is to be the provider. And then there's this instant kind of conflict where, like you mentioned, I'm a provider, but now I have to be nurturing, I have to be present, I have to be emotionally stable. I have to have all these things that just as a provider, you don't necessarily need, right? If you're just a provider, you just go out and work, bring the check home, people eat, right? Lights stay on, all that extra stuff. But when you add in those other pieces, I think it's really important that you stay connected with your family because you are going to have to go outside the house to go hunt. You're gonna have to go out there and go make money. You're gonna have to do all the things that you do to provide. But if you have a strong connection with your kids, with your significant other, then every time you leave doesn't feel like a loss, right? It feels like, oh, dad is going out to take care of us. So they actually enjoy or they start to understand that it's necessary. But that has to be built first. And if you don't, it's hard to go backwards. It's almost like respect, right? It's harder to have respect in the beginning and then become something else, than be something else and then try to get respect. Like being your kid's friend right away and then trying to get respect is going to be a lot harder because you're changing who you were to be something else. And that's usually hard for people to deal with.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, and I think a lot of men, it comes down to understanding what like their why. We talked about at the very beginning, like having purpose and clarity, and when we do that, it's okay, right? Like I feel like we've become into a culture where like men having assertiveness, men having a clarity, we've been shunned a little bit, and it's okay to know where you want to go. And it goes back to this idea, like of that work-life balance, because so often men cope, and I relate with this through just working more, right? Like, hey, my job is working more. And so something that came to my mind, and it goes into my next question of what are some strategies? Like we're about tangible, like men want some tangible things. What are some strategies for balancing community engagement with personal and professional life?
Yeah. So here's something that I've and you mentioned earlier as well. So I don't call myself a work-life balance coach. I really don't even use the term work-life balance because I feel like balance kind of leans towards the two things have to have some kind of equal weight, right? Like a pound of feathers and a pound of gold are both a pound, but one is obviously more valuable. Your family time is more of the gold than less of the feathers, right? And so I like to say harmony. And so what you want to have when you think harmony, you think of like barbershop quartet, right? You got five who sing and videos, how you engage with the people in your office, extremely important, right? That's your work community. Your family is your inner circle, right? They're your internal community. But then outside of that, things like this, where we have guys getting together, where you're with other men who are on the same path as you, that community is important, right? Because your social life, as well as your family life and your career life or work life, are extremely important. And you have to have like when those three things, I think like a Venn diagram, when those three circles cross, that's that sweet spot, right? And that's where we want to try to be as often as we can. Now, different scenarios are going to pull us in different directions, right? We're going to need to make more money, so we're going to have to focus a little bit more on our work community and our work life, right? If we need to, maybe something's going on at home, right? We need to make sure we are taking care of business with our wife, taking care of business with our kid. Maybe there's some kind of crisis or controversy. We're going to have to spend more time there. You go out on a guy's night, right? You go to the game or something like that. Obviously, you're taking time away from career and from family, but you're dedicating it to yourself. And I think that's one thing that we do as men a lot is we become the sacrificial lamb for our family, right? We go out and we work a job that we don't necessarily like for hours that we don't necessarily want to work, and we just we're doing it for our family, so we're just going to tough it out. We come into the house and we just kind of go with the flow and do whatever everybody else is doing because we're doing it for our family, right? We don't have friends. Like I heard something in America. I think the average man has less than 3 friends, and that's crazy, right? To to grow up your whole life with all these friends you could think of, play team sports, all these guys that you're surrounded by, and then you become a married man. You got maybe 1 to 3 friends that you actually associate with. That can't be great for your social aspect. So again, we're sacrificing ourselves to do all these things, and we're willing to, but we have to have some of those other parts to thrive in any one of them.
Yeah, I want to go off topic for 1 second because that what you just said was, whew, this kind of goes into the importance of community. Like I know that you have been building a community of men. What are you seeing that in men? What changes are you seeing in men when they jump into community and they jump into this type of work? Because I know a lot of men have this perception or this belief that this type of work, like within a community of men, is too touchy feely. If you understand what I'm saying.
Mhm. I think the first thing that guys notice when you get into a community or into anything, even this, you'll notice that you're not alone, right? And I think a lot of times we glorify this kind of lone wolf mentality, like we got to go out and take care of business. We got to be really stoic, right? We have to experience emotions but not show them. We have to do all these things. But I think when you get in a group, you realize, hey, there's other guys that are just like me, that are going through some of the same things that I'm going through. And while I may not be ready right away to open up, right? If that guy is sharing it, then I can steal a little bit of his juice, right? If he's making it happen, then I can get a little bit of that. And then eventually you start to let go of some of that and start to open yourself up because that's where the growth really happens, right? Where you're able to become the dad that you want to be is actually going to be by letting go, not necessarily grabbing hold. And I think guys realize that once they get inside a community and they see that other guys are doing it, right? And then you become a bridge, right? There's a guy that's a little bit ahead of you in whatever direction you want to go. And there's a guy that's behind you that you can pull along. So that guy in front of you is pulling you ahead, guy behind you is pushing you, and you're eventually going to grow.
Yeah, I like what you said there because I think it's important that when we do get in that community, um, we're giving other men permission when we express ourselves. Like when we're talking about challenging times, when we're just opening up, we're giving men permission to do the same. Because I think we're like hesitant. We're like, well, if I do this, I don't know how these people will perceive me. But when they see others doing that, we're opening the floor. And I like how you said, like, you could be on your journey, someone's pulling you and someone's pushing you at the same time, right? And so like that's the powerful message there, that what you're saying, and I wanted to validate that. I want to go back to the work-life harmony because I love this. I think 2020 when COVID, the pandemic happened, this is really waking up men because we got a different type of work life, right? We were being pushed into our homes and being present at home while we are working as well. And so what is the work-life harmony blueprint that you've created or that's worked for you?
So you know what? my situation, COVID pushed me, but my situation is different than most, and I'm working my way back into it. But I was presented in COVID with a I gave myself an ultimatum. It was like, you're gonna spend time with your family or you're gonna go hard in your career. And I was like, my career is not as important as my family. And I walked away from my job, right? And now I don't I work with guys all the time and I never tell anybody to leave their job, right? That's just it's difficult to do. If you don't already have something set up that can kind of put you in that position, it's really hard to do. I was fortunate enough to give myself an ultimatum where I knew I was going to be able to set some things up. But I think with COVID presenting itself the way it was and we were being pushed into our home, we have to find a way now where I was working at home, my family was at home, my wife was at home. I had to figure out a way to get work done efficiently and be able to give time to my family efficiently. So the first thing we have to do is we have to get our calendar in order, right? Somebody once told me if you can master your minutes, you can master your millions. And this was a business guy. And I took that and I ran with it. If I can master my minutes, then I can master the time that I have in my home, right? My schedule isn't dictating to me what I do. Now I dictate to my schedule what's going to happen. So when I'm working, I'm 100% dedicated to work. And my family knows we have a discussion about it. Well, you have to have a discussion about it at some point, but uh, they know when daddy's working, right? The office door opens up and it's family time. Everybody that I work with, all my coaching clients know that if it's a scheduled family time, like, and I'll give them a heads up, I'm not going to be answering emails. I'm not going to be answering phone calls because I've given my work the time that it needed. Now I'm giving my family the time it needed. And it's like there's no distractions, right? Because now my family can get all that it needs. And so when you do it that way, you realize that it doesn't have to be a whole lot of family time. Because again, the two things aren't equal, right? Family time is more important. So if you're 100% invested in the family time, even if it's only a couple hours a day, because you got to work 8 hours a day, right? Typical person works 8 hours a day. Some guys are working more than that. That doesn't leave a whole lot of time for you to spend with your family. So if you're only going to get 1 or 2 hours, those 1 or 2 hours have to be 100% dedicated to them. And that's got to be the first thing you do, right? Once you get your calendar in order, you have those conversations with your family, then you go hard in the areas that you have set up. And I think what you realize is I'm being fulfilled in my career and I'm also being fulfilled in my family life.
Yeah, that's deep. That's powerful. I wanted to this thought came up to me as you were saying that as well. Is like you work with a lot of men, and I would assume that knowing you kind of you're taking notes, you're wanting to see trends, you're trying to better your practices. Like that's what as competitors, that's what we do, right? Like to be the best us, we want to take those notes. What are the men that you're working with, the fathers that you're working with, what are they struggling with? Like what is the kind of the common theme that you're seeing? And then what is your, 2-minute elevator pitch into that?
So what actually pushed me into the work life harmony field, like, and it's its own thing now, is I was working with guys, just helping them become better men, better fathers, just in general, right? Very, very general kind of idea. But the same questions kept coming up: is how do I provide and be present, right? How do I become a present provider? Because your mind is telling you got to go make money, right? But your heart is telling you that we need to be home, and that constant conflict kept coming up over and over and over again. And I think the thing that guys are struggling with most is that society tells you that you have to man up, you be a man, whatever that is, right? You put quotations around it and they all caps, the man part, exclamation point, right? And that doesn't involve nurturing. It doesn't involve showing emotion. It doesn't involve making breakfast for your kids or ironing your wife's clothes. Like none of those things fall under the man category. Uh, Being aggressive, being the disciplinarian in your household, going out and going to work, coming home, watching sports and going to sleep, maybe drink a beer or two. Like those are all the things that fall under the societal man umbrella. And guys are having trouble with that because they're like, hey, I mean, those things are cool. I love sports, right? I'm a 49er fan. I love watching football. I enjoy a beer every once in a while. I'm a cigar guy. Like, but there's who want to show love to my family. And guys are just struggling with that. It's like, how do I do this and that? And, you know, being because I had to go through that same struggle, I was like, you know what? I have an idea. Let's do this, right? Let's try that. And as I've worked with guys, we just kind of came up with a strategy that works, that's repeatable. Obviously, it's going to be a little different for everybody because everybody's scenario is a little different. But what we do is we figure out what it is that you want to accomplish as a man and as a father. Like, who do you want to be as a father? Who do you want to be as a man? And then in the middle there, what do you like career goals? What do you want your career to turn out to be? And now we're going to maximize all three, right? We're going to find the commonalities between the three things that make you who you are, and we're going to exploit those and we're going to build those up. We're going to strengthen those so that you can continue to be the employee or the boss or the entrepreneur that you want to be. Like your business can thrive in the way you want to thrive. You could be the husband, you can be the title is you could be the best that you can be. And then the center of it all is the man that you are. And we have to build that up in order to support the other two. And so we're going to make you the man that you want to be physically, mentally, and emotionally. And all of that kind of in a I want to say gumbo because I just had gumbo the other day. And like we put it in a pot and we mix it all up and it seems like it's crazy delicious, right? It just makes it work.
Yeah, and what I hear from that whole thing, and I really take away, and I love that, is like you're giving men a voice, number one, and you're allowing men to create boundaries. And there's this idea that boundaries can be rigid or they are rigid. But I feel like a healthy boundary is a flexible boundary. It's a boundary that you've built trust with people in your life that you can sometimes, you can flex it. If you need to pull it away or do you need to put it up, you know that you're building this trust with yourself and giving men voice. And when we've like you said, you've made that definition, and I wholeheartedly agree. We're putting men in that box that they fit in that box, but we're now having men wake up and say, "Hey, we don't want to fit in the box. We want more," because at the end of the day, it comes down to that connection,
Right.
right?
Right.
More connection, and our lives, we get to feel more. We don't just get to regular, or we don't get to just associate with the anger that people perceive men should solely associate with. We get happiness, we get sadness, right? We get joy, we get the full spectrum.
Yeah. I think what men are realizing and what I realize is that we have been, like you said, putting men in a box or manhood have been put in a box. But the reality is it's not actually a box, it's a cube, right? The box is one dimensional. You just everything goes in, but that cube has space, it has volume, it has height, it has depth. And a man is multidimensional. Manhood is multidimensional because there's so much that goes into it. Fatherhood is the same way, right? And for those of us that run businesses or work jobs, we understand that our job has many different things that go into it. Our business has many different things that go into it. So we can't put anything in a box. It's all going into a cube because it's multidimensional.
Man, you gotta coin that term. Whatever you do, you gotta coin that term because I loved it, and I think a lot of men can resonate with that. If anybody that's been listening to this
Yeah.
and they're like, man, like I want to work with you, I want your services, like how can men reach out to you? How can they work with you? What products or services do you have right now that you can offer the men that are in this summit right now?
There's a couple things, right? Reaching out to me, probably the best way is social media is one of them. If you follow me on Instagram, it's at forfeit fatherhood, the number forfeit fatherhood. You can DM me on there. I usually get back. If I'm not able to right away, then I'll get back at some point. Uh, um, very quickly, usually the same forfeitfatherhood at gmail.com. I just put together a book that is the fatherhood roadmap. That is if you message me, you email me, I'll send it to you for free. It is just a culmination of all the things that I've learned over the last 11 years as a father of two. I've also taken some of the things that I learned from my fathers. I had a father and a stepfather, things that I gained from them, and kind of boiled it all down into 5 easy to digest chapters that are meant to be a roadmap for men to become the father that they want to be. And then I'm actually just finished up recording a coaching course that is work life harmony centered. And basically, what I do is there's 8 modules. It's meant to be done over the course of maybe 8 weeks. Some guys will do it faster. Some guys may take a little longer. It depends on your schedule. But over the course of that 8 weeks, you go from where you are right now to the man that you want to be, that present provider, right? That guy who is no longer fitting in the box because he lives his life outside the box, right? He's multidimensional. He's killing it in work. He's killing it in family, and he's taking care of himself because the man at the center of it all is most important. And that will be on. I mean, I guess by the time this comes out, I'll make sure you guys all have a link to that so that you can take advantage of it. And then one-on-one coaching, again, just reach out to me, email or through Instagram, and we can set something up. We'll talk about how I can help you overcome the obstacle that seems to be hanging over all of our heads.
Yeah, man, Rod, I really appreciate the time. Like, when Jack and I first talked about this, you were the first person that came to mind. Man, if you want to get clear on your intention, if you want to get clear on your purpose, this is the man to go to. So please reach out to him. He will help you all things work-life harmony, all things. This is the guy to talk to sports. This is the guy, everything. So, Rod, thank you for your time today.
No, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate what you guys are doing for men. The more voices we have helping us push the narrative and push each other forward, the better.
All right, take care, brother.